Our 12 main characters destined to save the world are quite a team. They are very different from one another, not just graphically, as the first two games have near identical protagonists, but personality and characteristics wise. Linton could very well be your average 12-year-old boy, wearing a striped t-shirt, a baseball cap, and red socks, living with his mother, sisters, and dog, while his father travels way too much. But that's not the case. This guy is one of the special kind, blessed with the power of PSI. Overall, Linton is a balanced character, has many useful abilities, and that's it, useful abilities. He has literally no offensive PSI, only recovery, assist, and miscellaneous types. Lloyd lives in the town of Marysville, and is one of the kids that actually goes to school. He is the living stereotypical depiction of a nerd, wearing glasses and being bullied by his classmates. So he decided to do what his father does best: hide in a trash can. He's on the rooftop of his school until Linton comes by and asks him for bottle rockets and to be kind to him. He cannot use PSI, but compensates so by being able to use different explosives and guns. Stat-wise, he is semi-balanced. His low stats are speed and defense, making him a bit of a glass cannon, while his wisdom is huge. Wisdom can make you more likely to apply status effects, so items that do so are better paired with him. Anna is a little girl living in the cold region of Snowman. She saw Linton in a dream and joins forces with him and Lloyd to help rescue her missing mother. She may look like a normal girl, but she is able to use PSI, and she has offensive PSI as well. As such, her force, the psychic point grow rate, and wisdom are extremely high, making her the magic user of the team. But every single other stat is way too low. Her offense being almost non-existent, as her fight stat barely even grows. Her speed isn't that great, and neither her defense. And so, Anna will be dead a lot of times. Like, a lot. Grinding is absolutely necessary to stay alive and annihilate your enemies with powerful PSI. Teddy is an orphan of unknown age, leader of the Blah Blah gang in the town of Ely. He joins Linton to avenge his parents and climb the mysterious Mount Etoy. He is very tall and strong, and he may be one of the oldest members of any party. He can't use PSI, but boy oh boy, he makes up for it. He's the only member to not be added at level 1. Instead, he's already level 18. His stats are impressive. With high HP, he wields incredible offense and defense, further supported by the highest increases in the fight and speed stats, making him also able to attack first at all times. Ness is a courageous boy living in the city of Onett. He's also able to use PSI of all kinds. He looks way too much like Linton, the differences being the stripes in his shirt, white socks, and literally the orientation of his cap. Supposedly, the minimal differences are there to make you think that Linton and Ness are the same, but to me it was just the character designers going, fuck it, we don't have enough ideas to create a main character. Unlike Linton, Ness does have offensive PSI, which make this character less of a pain to play. His stats are balanced as well. The most notable increases are Guts, the ability to survive lethal blows and land crits, Vitality, increases in health, and Luck, avoiding attacks and being able to use items effectively. Paula is an 11-year-old girl from Twoson. She helps her mother on her school, the Polestar Preschool, where the other kids see her as a second mom. She's another blonde little girl. She's different from Anna more than Ness is different from Linton, but she shares the trait of being PSI capable and having offensive PSI. She has a huge speed stat, as well as a very decent luck. IQ, the successor of Force, is also very high, but everything else is really terrible. Offense, defense, HP, and HP growth. She also has one unique ability: Pray. This command applies random effects from the likes of making everyone cry, restoring HP, or fully reviving everyone. This can lead to some interesting results, and even you dying. Yeah, it's fun to leave things in the hands of luck. Jeff is another normal, geeky student boy, but this time with a uniform. He's somewhat similar to Lloyd, but level design changes make them distinguishable from each other. His stats are below average, with everything being low except for defense and IQ, so he isn't the best at attacking. But he knows how to use stuff like bullet rockets, which do stupid amounts of damage. He also has two unique abilities: Spying and Repairing. Spy is like Mother's check command, but in addition to enemies' offense, defense, and PSI weaknesses, he can steal items. The Repairing ability uses his IQ stat, as he can repair broken things into completely different stuff, like weapons for himself or useful items that only he can use. Who is the Prince of Dalaam? A country in disguise or something? He's so devoted to his training that he wears a gi all the time. You may think that PSI is rare in this world, but guess what? He's the third member in EarthBound's party to bear PSI of all kind. He has great offense, defense, speed, and vitality. But for a PSI user, his IQ is extremely low, as well as his luck and guts. So he's weird stat-wise. Him appearing is extremely strange, as he literally just teleports to you because he is one of the chosen four. Pooh has another unique special ability, Mirror. This allows him to mimic a non-boss enemy and use their attacks for around 20-ish turns, and sometimes can lead to weird results. Like this time he was just healing over and over and over and over again. Something unique to Pooh is very akin to Tibetan stereotypes, as material possessions are bad at him. He can't equip anything because it will lower his stats. But there is one type of gear that only he can use, the king items. Most of them are presents. They are the only stat increasing equipment available. Not only that, but he can't recover HP with food. Everything heals him for 6 HP. Only with brain food launches would fill his HP to the max, and water can actually be used for recovering PP. Lucas is a boy from Tasville. He begins crying for everything and fearing almost even his own shadow, but then he grows and becomes stronger as he realizes his inner power, and looks at what the world has and will become if he doesn't do anything. He's also capable of using PSI, most notably PK Love, making him one of the only ones destined to pull the 7 needles. His stats are what I call the protagonist stats: highest offense in the game, alongside the second highest defense, second highest IQ, damage PSI can deal, and second highest health pool, compensated by the lowest speed ever. Kumatora is the orphan princess of Asohe Castle, just outside Tasman. She was raised by the Magypsy. She shows to be very reckless but can let that aside to help her friends. She is also gifted with PSI, and the Magicpsy trained her in its use. Kumatora is pretty much like every other girl in the series: lower health, low offense, semi-decent defense, the biggest PP in the group. Oh shit, that sounded scary. Offensive PSI, the highest IQ stat, and a bit of speed. Duster is one of the thieves in Tasmany. He also walks very weirdly. A lot of the time we're searching for this guy because he has the egg he was supposed to steal. He's pretty much a tank in the group, bearing the biggest health pool, accompanied by the second highest offense, the highest defense, the second highest speed, and the lowest IQ. Not that he can use PSI anyway. And when I mean the highest speed, I really mean it. He can sometimes attack before everybody and have his own turn after, literally flip the enemies around, and can even act out of ambushes. As I said, although he isn't a PSI user, he can use abilities of his own, the Thief Tools, a set of special things that act somehow as PSI. Boney is Lucas's dog. He accompanies him most of the time and is his second battle partner. He may have no special abilities, but he has the Sniff command. Very similar to the Spy command, it gives you a little description of the enemy as well as their weaknesses, but it can steal items. This guy is your go-to healing item source, as he has the highest speed in the group, sometimes even higher than enemies, and the third highest offense. However, he has the lowest defense of all. In this game, you can also control 3 more characters in your party for a limited amount of time through chapters. Klaus in the prologue, Flint in the first chapter complete with his own PSI-like abilities, Brute Force, and even Salsa the monkey, being able to dance and mimic the enemy. PSI is the magic system present in the series, renewed by sleeping or eating certain foods. This allows for a wide variety of stuff: healing, curing styles, vects, teleporting, shielding, damaging, you name it. If there is something to be done, there is most likely a PSI for it. Naming wise, normally they just have a name if they are utilities, but if we are talking about attacks, then the term PK, Psychokinesis, is added. Unless we are in EarthBound for whatever reason, it's PSI there. Any other case tends to have PSI in its name. The strength of the attack depends on the rank, represented by the Greek letters Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Sigma, only in EarthBound, Pi, only in EarthBound Beginnings, and Omega. Although some of them are rankless. Generally, Alpha means that it affects only one person, while Beta, Sigma, and Omega do all of them. But that varies in certain attacks, even within the ones without rankings. PSI is classified in 4 categories: Offense, Recovery, Assist, and Other. Offensive PSI are used for dealing damage, or at least the vast majority of them. All of them can be used to attack enemies, and they deal a massive amount whenever the enemy doesn't shield it or outright misses because, yes, some of them have the chance to miss. There's 3 elemental offensive PSI and 6 non-elemental. Within the elemental category, we have PK Fire, PK Freeze, and PK Thunder, dealing that type of damage. All 3 of them appear in all games. Fire and Freeze do a lot of damage, mostly Freeze in Mother 3 because reasons I guess, and Thunder deals good damage in all games of the first one, but compensates by being capable to be aimed, I guess? The number of enemies damaged varies between the attacks, Fire being all enemies, or raw in EarthBound, Freeze only one, and Thunder at random. This one has a very high chance to miss in EarthBound. On the non-elemental side of things, there's a lot to look at. PK Beam, PK Flash, PSI Rockin', PK Starstorm, PK Ground, and PK Love. Beam does a lot of damage with an insta-kill rank, but it's only present in EarthBound beginnings. From just random styles effects or insta-killing with Flash, massive amounts of damage to enemies with Starstorm, or deleting even bosses with Ground, no like seriously, from 1% to 12.5% of their health per hit, 5 hits, and a chance of tripping. There's way too many ways to deal that lot of damage. Rockin' and Love are the signature attacks for Ness and Lucas respectively. Extremely powerful but a bit expensive. It can only be done by them and literally 2, arguably 3 enemies, and it's just an insane amount of damage. Recovery PSI solve your HP, PP, and sound effect needs, letting you live for longer without having to go to rest points or eat anything. In this category we have Healing, Life Up, PSI Magnet, and Refresh. Healing, Life Up, and Magnet are present in all games, and that makes a lot of sense. Healing cures status effects, every game getting stronger than the past version, from 1 effect per level in Mother 1, to several of them in EarthBound, and finally all of them in Mother 3. It's extremely useful to keep you fresh and ready for battle. Life Up restores your HP by varying amounts every rank, because your own HP gets so big that lower levels are practically anything, and it allows you to tank damage without dying. The most remarkable one is Gamma, that can fully restore one person's HP, and maybe Omega as it restores a lot to all members. Magnet uses no PP but lets you restore a little amount to you as long as the enemies have PP to steal. Useful, but I rarely even use it. Refresh only appears in Mother 3. It makes the entire party recover 1/8 of their HP every turn for 5 turns, which makes them nearly invincible. Assist PSI are like a Swiss Army knife, having a lot of members in the category, all of them doing different stuff and some of them having way more versatility than others. This category is pretty huge, as we encounter Brain Shock, Darkness, Defense Up, Defense Down, Hypnosis, Offense Up, Paralysis, PSI Shield, Power Shield, PSI Block, Quick Up, Shield Off, Shield, PSI Shield, Counter, PSI Counter, and Offense Down. Dealing status effects can be either semi-useful or not useful at all, from Confusion, changing the targets of an attack, caused by Brain Shock, Blindness, reduced accuracy, by Darkness, Sleep, inability to do anything, by Hypnosis, or Numbness, inability to do physical moves, by Paralysis. They are all cool and all, but raising and lowering stats for you and the enemy is where the good stuff is. Raising your offense and defense with Offense Up and Defense Up, while lowering the enemy's same stats with Offense Down and Defense Down is incredibly useful. That way enemies will die faster while you die slower. Also, Mother 1 had extremely overpowered versions. Defense Up made you take 1 damage for whatever reason, while Offense Up made you deal like 300 damage. Good thing they were nerfed. Quick Up raises your speed, making you attack faster and dodge more, which is a bit useful I guess. PSI Block makes enemies unable to use PSI, and then Mad doesn't make a full comeback, at least in Mother 3. Not only status effects or stat modifying, Assist PSI also gives you the ability to shield. Whether you only render yourself resistant to normal attacks with PSI Shield and Shield, reduce the damage or even delete enemy PSI with PSI Shield, or inflict damage with Power Shield, Shield, PSI Shield, Counter and PSI Counter, or straight out disabling enemy shield with Shield Buff, shielding makes you able to survive way longer and kill enemies before they do. Although the most useful instance to use this is actually just boss battles. Other, or as I call it, miscellaneous PSI, are literally just 3 PSI that do none of the above. They just serve specific purposes, whether it is talking to some objects or reading some NPC's minds with telepathy, warping to places you have been to before with teleport, or outright fleeing battles with Fortly Slip. These are useful in their own way out of battle. Remember what I said about Duster's thief tools? They can act similarly to some PSI. Wall staples can be used for climbing certain walls, as well as immobilize an enemy like Paralysis Alpha, except it has a different kind of resistance stat dedicated to it, so it just partially acts as paralysis. The Smoke Bomb makes one enemy cry, like one of the effects of PK Flash. The Hypno Pendulum puts one enemy to sleep, like Hypnosis Alpha. The Siren Beetle makes an enemy turn around. This one is actually unique and makes the enemy waste one turn. The Scary Mask lowers an enemy's offense, like Offense Down Alpha. And the Tickle Stick lowers an enemy's defense, like Defense Down Alpha.